Hi YouTube, Watch Fire with another video. I recently did an unboxing video on this watch, so here's the full review video I promised. This is the Seiko model SSC813 solar chronograph. It was recently released in early November 2021 and is part of the Seiko Prospex line. Along with this Panda version, there are three other colorways in the lineup. There is the blue dial with red accents SSC815, the beige dialed SSC817, and the black dialed SSC819. Of those, I kind of like the beige dial more than the other two. This Panda dial version seems to be the most popular, and I think Seiko knew it would be, as they feature it prominently on their SpeedTimer product page. Seiko also came out with some automatic SpeedTimer models, one of which is a limited edition. Those have an internal tachymeter bezel and are selling for over $3,000 though, so this solar SpeedTimer line is definitely more attainable. These watches retail for 675 US dollars. Typically when there's a new Seiko release, hardly anyone pays the retail price, and you can get it from online retailers for below that. In this case, as of the time of filming, you're lucky to even find one at retail price. Scalpers are doing what scalpers do in times of high demand, and I'm seeing markups of around $100 or more above retail price. I think there are some interested in this watch that have the patience to hang back and wait for them to start popping up on the pre-owned market. So what is making this watch so popular, and is it worth its almost $700 price tag? I'll try to explore that question from my own perspective. First, here are the case dimensions. The case size is 39 millimeters. Lug-to-lug distance is 45.5 millimeters. Thickness is 13.3 millimeters, and the lug width is 20 millimeters. Size for my 6 3/4 inch wrist, the watch weighs a hefty 144 grams. This watch is also water resistant to 100 meters. I've heard what separates a $200 Seiko from a $500 or $600 and above Seiko is the case finishing. This case's design kind of reminds me of the classic 62 MAS H-shaped case. Of note is there are no drilled lug holes here. The case is polished on the sides and between the lugs. The tips of the lugs are also polished, as is the underneath of the case. You can see a circular brushing pattern on the top of the case and lugs. The two pushers and case back are also brushed. Whether this finishing is of a higher quality than a less expensive Seiko solar chronograph is hard for me to tell. I'll admit that I'm no expert in case finishing, and when I compare it to the less expensive model SSC813, the polishing looks of the same quality to me, and the brushing is coarser and more noticeable on this SSC813. I'm not sure if that is by design though. The external black tachymeter bezel is of course fixed, and the marks and numerals on it are filled in white. It has a nice slope to it before it flattens out at the top. The section just underneath the slope and the slope itself have a polished look, while the top of the bezel has a brushed look. I'm not sure what material the bezel is made out of, so I'm gonna guess it's stainless steel, but also by its looks it could pass for a ceramic bezel. The two pushers are well sized and easy to press. The coin edge crown is 6.7 millimeters wide and about 3.5 millimeters in height, and as you can see, there are no crown guards. There's something to be said about presentation, and that is where this SSC813 impresses. It looks and feels solid on wrist. Part of that I think is due to its weight. In terms of the dial, on this model you'll see a matte white color with a very fine black minute track. The applied indices are bar-shaped and have a polished angle to them on the side closest to the center of the dial, and that really helps with catching the light. The 3 and 9 o'clock indices are smaller due to there not being enough room next to the subdials. There's an applied Seiko logo with the Prospex logo just underneath it in black. Surrounding the dial is what looks to be a chapter ring that looks to me to be brushed stainless steel. In regards to the subdials, there are three in the classic Rolex Daytona locations. On the left is the second subdial that is thankfully hitting the marks. On the right is the 24-hour subdial. And on the bottom is the smaller 60-minute timer subdial that doubles as a battery charge level indicator when not in use. and I think that was a really good choice for Seiko to include that. All the sub-dials have contrasting white hands. The dial hands are sword-shaped and done in black except for the areas filled with lume. These black hands contrast well against the dial. Seiko chose to use a patina-colored lume on the hands, which was a good decision. The stopwatch seconds hand is also done in black with an extremely fine tip that extends out to the minute track. This hand also has a small lumed arrow shape on it. The sweep at the timer hand is smooth and thankfully lines up well with the 12 o'clock marker. Here's a lume shot of the dial in hands, which you can see glows green. Covering the dial is what Seiko's calling a curved sapphire crystal. It sits above the bezel and has a blue anti-reflective undercoating. So again, I think this is a good choice over a flat or fully domed crystal. Onto the bracelet. It's well done overall, and I think it matches the watch well. The exterior of the links are brushed and are polished on the sides. Here's a side view of the links. The bracelet has a smaller square-shaped clasp that has the Seiko logo etched on it. It has double push button release and only 2 micro adjustment holes. I like to wear my bracelet snug, so I had to remove 4 links and use the outermost micro adjustment hole to suit my 6 3/4 inch wrist. There are no half links on this bracelet. The bracelet tapers from 19.6 millimeters to 17.7 millimeters where it meets the clasp. It has solid end links and that I think integrate well with the case, and this bracelet also has a milled clasp. So I'm really impressed with the OEM bracelet and I find it comfortable to wear, so I have no plans on changing it out. In terms of complaints regarding the watch itself, honestly I really don't have any significant ones. At first I thought the thickness was a bit much at 13.3 millimeters, but after wearing the watch for a while, the thickness doesn't really bother me or seem out of place. It would have been nice to have an additional micro adjustment hole, of course, and I guess you could say not having drilled lug holes is a negative, but I think Seiko chose to not include those because of how it would look on this watch. The biggest issue people might have with this watch is its price. At $675 retail, it's a bit steep for a Seiko solar chronograph. The Seiko SSC813 I showed you earlier cost me $227 and also has a sapphire crystal and is solar. The bracelet on that watch isn't as good as the one on this SSC813, of course, but it isn't bad either. There's a price difference of $338 between these two watches. I think when something costs more, buyers tend to regard it as being of higher quality and worth the extra cost they paid. In the case of this SSC813, I'm not so sure. I honestly think it would have been better priced at around $400 to $450. This watch isn't a limited edition, so I think it will be available for quite a while, so hopefully prices come down to below retail levels soon. I know some will regard this watch as a Rolex Daytona homage, and I'm even seeing some refer to it as the Saytona. Seiko's done this before, where they come out with a watch that has a similar design to a more expensive watch. The Flightmaster SNA411 comes to mind. However, Seiko is a well-known brand and is a watchmaker with a long history. Most of their popular designs are their own, so it's not the same as if you had gotten a Daytona homage from AliExpress in my mind. After wearing the watch for a week, I can say that I'm really liking this watch, and it's in my top 10 favorite watches in my large watch collection. I found that I prefer an external tachymeter bezel over an internal one. I think this model is going to be popular and a big seller for Seiko for the foreseeable future. I know there are a lot of watch aficionados that look down on solar movement watches, but for me, I can appreciate the accuracy and grab-and-go benefits that you get with the solar movement. There are other solar chronographs in the Seiko lineup, but most seem to be over 40mm case size. With the release of this model, the newer SRPG field watch line, and the 38.5mm Prospex S&E diver line, it seems that Seiko's caught on that below 40mm case size is what's in demand right now for many watch consumers. I think that's all I can say about this watch. I hope you found the video helpful or interesting, and if you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, or consider subscribing. I wanted to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in another video.